Are you one of the 75% of contractors whose financial statements are inaccurate? Find out. Click on the link in the show notes and you'll get a free P&L and balance sheet check.
This is Contractor Sense with Ruth King.
Welcome to Contractor Sense. Here you discover ideas, tactics, news, and information that matters to your contracting business and you. I'm your host, Ruth King. This episode is sponsored by Financially Fit Business. Get the business tool that helps you grow profitably, build wealth, and live the life of your dreams in less than 10 minutes a month. Go to www.financiallyfit.business and get started today. Thank you for joining us. Here's how we will help your business and you. If I want it done right, I have to do it myself. How many of you actually believe, or worse, live this statement? If you do, be prepared for frustration and slow, if any, growth in revenue or profitability. You got to let go to grow. But how do you do it? Sometimes outsourcing is the answer. My guest today, Nolan Bradbury, knows why outsourcing is important. Okay, when it's done right, to help you scale to the next level. So what do you look for? What do you need to outsource? Nolan will answer these questions and more. Nolan, welcome to Contractor Sense.
Hi, thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, my pleasure to have you. So let's talk about outsourcing. You're an expert in outsourcing. And how did you get into this?
Yeah, so my background is in accounting, and I worked what's called in the public sector. So I worked for very large companies, making sure their numbers were right. But ultimately wasn't really finding the joy in that work just because it was kind of not helping people in a true sense of the word. And so moved on to some other jobs, and then ultimately found myself working with small business owners and helping them really try to understand why they weren't getting the results they wanted and what the changes were they needed to make to sort of get the business results they wanted financially, but also then the individual personal financial results they were looking for.
Yeah. And basically sometimes it's, how do I have more time? I mean, we never get more time. It's just, how do I allocate my time better so that I can spend time with my family, my kids, whatever. So, and a lot of times outsourcing, I mean, if you can't afford, I hate to use the word can't afford, but if you don't have the budget to hire somebody internally, 40 hours a week, and maybe you don't need somebody 40 hours a week, outsourcing can be an answer, right?
Yeah. The beauty of outsourcing is that you like you described, you don't have to pay for full-time people. You can kind of right size the support that you need for yourself. So whether you're early on in sort of or on a smaller size company and maybe what you need is a few hours a week or a month, you can find someone to do that work for you who's not a full-time employee. Similarly, maybe you are on the larger end of the spectrum, but you still don't need a full-time employee. There's more sort of full-time or part-time CFOs or consultants who can help you on, say, a 20-hour or 30-hour a month or even a week type schedule. It's a lot more flexibility in terms of what you're needing for your business.
Yeah, one of my clients has a fractional CFO that we've kept on, even though he now has an internal CFO who's there 40 hours a week, just as oversight. Now, and Leo doesn't work, more than probably a couple hours a week max, or when we need him to answer questions, but he's still oversight as an outsourced, fractional CFO.
Yeah, we have similar situations with clients of ours who we've done the accounting for them, and they've gotten bigger and they've brought people on internally, and then we're sort of filling that oversight role. It is about, usually like a full accounting department will have many layers of review and so forth. And even as you get bigger, maybe you have one person internally or more than one person internally, you still may not have the full sort of gambit of review and checkpoints you want along the way. And so that's where some external oversight can be helpful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So accounting is one area. Where might be another area that we could look for outsourcing?
Yeah, so I think there's two ways to kind of view this generally, and then I'll narrow that down from a more specific standpoint to answer your question. So I think first off, you kind of have to think about, and this is a tough question to ask yourself, but what is it that you don't know, right? So
sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
It's a bit of an abstract question, right? But it's about understanding your lanes and where you should be focusing your time. So when you're a business leader, maybe you're running the business and you're more on the business, as they say. Maybe you're still working in the business. In either scenario, though, what you're doing, it may not be in the legal realm. You may not be the person who should be reviewing every contract for its first pass through. You may not be the person who's dealing with all the HR pieces. So part of it is understanding what is your area of expertise and where can you find other people who are professionals in their area of expertise, right? So that's kind of like the first subset of it. And then I think the other way to view this is, and you kind of alluded to this up front, which is how can you buy back your time to use it for better purposes, right? So when you're looking at what the scope of what you do, and as an owner of business, as an employee, even within a business, we often wear many hats. From taking the garbage out to paying people to doing the whole suite of things. But where are there places where by utilizing fractional type of contractors, where can you go get people to do the work for you such that you can sort of buy back time? Because as you said, time is the one asset you can never get more. It is a finite amount of that you have. You need to figure out how to sort of maximize it, or at a minimum, use it in the way that you want to use it.
Yeah, I mean, one of my former clients, well, he's not a former client. I still keep in touch with him. But anyway, his daughter was nationally ranked in volleyball, and his reason for starting the business was so he could go to her games, and he hired a great management team, and he never missed a game. But he did the oversight, but they ran the business on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's kind of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and actually, it's funny you use that example because one I often give to people is, I was sitting down with a new client, and what they told me was they were like, yeah, I need help getting my business to a 7-figure revenue business. And I said, okay, why is that your goal? And as we talked through it, what we ultimately determined was what they really wanted to do was be able to pick their son up from baseball practice twice a week. Mm-hmm. And so what we had to do then was find what is the solution that is going to allow you to do that. Maybe it is getting 7 figures in revenue, but maybe there's something else that's a much more cost-effective approach, and we can do it from an easier place to get you to where you want to be.
And quicker.
Exactly. Yep.
So yeah, a lot of times I hear sometimes some things very, very similar. It's just, okay, what's the question behind the question, or what's the reality behind the question? And most of the listeners have heard me talk about how do we really generate revenue, and it's with billable hours. It's not service, it's not maintenance, it's not repairs, stuff like that. So it's a question behind the question, and a lot of times you have to dig past that first question. And you can help them from the outsourcing perspective there.
Yep, exactly. And oftentimes the reason people are, I'll say, maybe reluctant or don't think they can outsource certain things, that's usually the more common scenario, is that people think that the work they're doing, they can only do.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's like, well, I've always done this. I'm the only one who understands it. I'm the only one who can do this. I can't hand it off to someone else. And it will be hard at first, no question, because you do have to accept the fact that in the beginning, you have to train this person. It's no different than an employee or any other person that you want to be able to do something for you. But there are certain hurdles that, unfortunately, like our brain tends to get in the way of, which is we often sort of maybe lack the clarity as to what we're really trying to accomplish and the steps we need to take. So if you can solve that helps you sort of get through that piece. And then there's the more emotional piece, which is, I don't really feel like I can, or I don't have the willpower to stick with this. And it's like, what you really have to do is find the feeling that's causing that to make you feel that way, so that you can solve for that and then sort of move through whatever that resistance is that you're experiencing.
Absolutely. So Nolan, before we take a break, if somebody wants to reach out to you, where do they do that, or how do they do that?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, bradfieldco.com. So BRADFIELDCO.com. Or you can find me at LinkedIn, Nolan Bradbury. I'm on there. Feel free to connect with me either way. Happy to talk with anyone who might be in a place where they could use some outside perspective.
Sounds great. And thanks for listening to Contractor Sense. We'll be right back. Imagine you had total freedom. You didn't have to worry about money. You didn't have to be a slave to your business. The words "I can't" are eliminated from your vocabulary. What if you could do what you want to do whenever you want to do it? A financially fit business could give you that freedom. How? By knowing what your financial statements are telling you and taking action based on what they say. You can do this in less than 10 minutes a month at an investment of less than taking your family out to dinner once a month. And if your financial statements are a mess, you can get help. Go to www.financiallyfit.business or click on the QR code below to get started today. We're back. Thanks for listening to Contractor Sense. I'm speaking with Nolan Bradbury, and we are talking about outsourcing and the need to do it and how to do it. And, Nolan, let's assume, they've said, okay, I don't want to do it myself anymore, but I can't's not the right word, but I need somebody part-time. I don't need somebody full-time. And I've made the decision to, bite the bullet, so to speak, and outsource and go find somebody for a few hours a week or, how do we make this work? Because, as we talked about during the break, most entrepreneurs, most business owners are, do it yourself. And, we want to do it. How do we, teach them? How do we let go so it's a positive experience for both the person who is coming in as well as the company?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm going to take one small slight step back before we get to that point. I think there's something that can be really beneficial slightly upstream from that.
Okay.
So when you're going out and you're making that decision, you're trying to find the person. One thing that often gets overlooked in sort of the quote unquote interview process is the communication and the expectations around the communication that you're going to have. So we often interview people and we want to understand, are they technically good at this? Will they, can I trust them? All those types of things, which don't get me wrong, are very important. But where oftentimes the relationship breaks down is in the communication piece. So part of what's really key when you're finding that person is asking and understanding what is their preferred way of communicating, and then being transparent about how you want to be communicated with. Maybe you only want to be texted. Maybe you only want to have IM messages. Maybe it's only send me an email, but I want one email a day that summarizes everything for me. There's no shame in how you work and operate, but you're only going to be successful if you are transparent up front about how you guys are going to work together. So I just want to go upstream and say that, because that's a really critical piece before you get to sort of the onboarding of the person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It also, that really goes to the generational aspects of it. If I want to talk to my daughter, I have to text her first and say, can you talk? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. And we know we all learn differently. We all communicate differently. So it's important that you're honest about that and you find someone who complements your style well.
Yeah, or understands it, one of the two.
Or understands it, yeah. So once we get past that and we've found the person that we want to work with and we're trying to bring them into the fold, the place I see the most struggle with, or most businesses fall down in that integration process, is they think they've hired the solution and they kind of wipe their hands of it and they go, okay, great, this person can take over for me from day one, problem solved, and they move on to the next thing that's drawing their attention. But as I think we can probably understand from that situation, this person, while they may be an expert in their field, they are not an expert in your business, and they do not understand all of the nuances of how you do business, how you pay bills, how you deal with customers, whatever the case may be. So it's important to understand up front, just like if you hired an employee, that you are committing the time and have planned to commit the time with this person in the beginning to really train them, give them the attention they need so that they can be successful and ultimately take this off your plate. The reality is that it usually takes a couple months, maybe 3 months, to get someone fully operational, up and running so they can really do what you have asked them to do. Unfortunately, we tend to sort of forget that when we're in this thing. We think of like, okay, I found this, it's a solution to my problem, and we think the solution will take effect immediately. And that's the reality of it, is that's just not the case. So you're going to be disappointed, you're going to be frustrated, and whoever you hire, if you are unwilling or have not thought of or planned for that onboarding and training component of it, and really being able to give your time or someone on your team's time.
Yeah, because if you don't do that, it will fail. Absolutely fail, no matter what.
100%.
Yeah. When you were talking about that, you're wiping your hands clean. The thing that came through my mind was, I've hired a bookkeeper. I don't have to deal with financials anymore.
Exactly.
Wrong.
Yeah. When I talk to people about the bookkeeping, what I will often tell them is like, look, my team can do 95 to 99% of the work without you, but there's going to be 1 to 5% that we're going to need from time to time. Maybe you go to Costco and you buy something. You can buy anything from Costco. I don't know what it was. So you either have to give me a receipt or an explanation of what that is. That's a small percentage, but you're still a part of the process in that scenario, right? So it's important, whatever it is that you've outsourced, like you do have to remember you still have a role in that process, and either in the onboarding or even maybe down the road still sort of checking in with them.
Yeah, I call it a delegating, not abdicating.
Yes. Yep.
It's really important to do that. Okay, so let's assume that this outsourcing has turned into something really, really, really good. They're doing really well. They're happy. And now you want them to work more hours. How do we approach that? Is it something that you talk about up front during the interview position or process? Or can you see whether you like them first and say, hey, listen, can you work another 10 hours a week? Or how does that work?
Yeah. So, in a perfect world, right, when you're doing the interview, you would have the foresight and knowledge of down the road, this person, my business will grow and I will need this need at this time. And, you can have that open conversation then. But the reality is that that's not how life operates, right?
Yeah, of course
You
not.
can plan for that and it's still going to be, the timing's going to be off. And that's okay. What I can tell you is from working with thousands of business owners, the single thing is that it's communication. If you think that not talking about it sooner is going to solve it and it's going to be easier to talk about it later, you're wrong. Unfortunately, that's just not how it works. The reality is that the sooner you can identify that you might have a need for more time from someone, you need to have a sit down with them and ask them about that and understanding like what is their openness to it? What can they commit to? And if it's not them, at least giving yourself a bit more of a runway to find someone who maybe can either replace or augment or supplement that person who can't maybe give you the full piece that you need. Maybe it's that you end up with 2 part-time contractors instead of someone working more. The solution to our problems we often think of as being it's either this or it's not this. But the reality is there's somewhat of an infinite amount of solutions that we're presented with. We just oftentimes only see the one that's right in front of us. So the sooner you can sort of ask the question and quote unquote fail or succeed, the faster you'll be able to sort of make the next decision to figure out if that's the right one for you.
Got it. All right. Final thoughts on outsourcing.
Just in general,
Just in general.
Yeah, I think that the couple things to take away from this is that one, we are at a point in business society where almost anything can be outsourced. And I think it's important to sort of have that perspective. And so if you're sitting there going, the thing I want to do or the thing I don't want to do anymore, can't do anymore, I can't outsource, I would challenge you as to why that really is, because there's really only one true category of things that shouldn't be outsourced, and that's like strategy. So anything that's like really the strategy of your business, you need to still be involved in because it's your business and no one will care as much about it as you in that sense. Beyond that, though, just about everything someone has come up with a solution for or can provide a resource for. And so part of it is being open to the idea that there is a solution. It doesn't have to be you. And that by getting it off your plate, you're probably going to be happier because you can focus on things you either want to do or are more important or both.
Very good. Give us your website and your LinkedIn address again, please.
Yeah, the website is bradfieldco.com, BRADFIELDCO.com. And I'm on LinkedIn very creatively under Nolan Bradbury, so you can find me out there. Hope to be able to connect with you guys. And if anyone is really looking for some help in getting started on this, we do free consultations in terms of helping getting people on the right path and sort of helping them maybe get unstuck from where they're at in terms of how they're approaching their problems. So happy to sort of have those scheduled, and you can do that through our website.
Sounds great. Nolan, thanks so much for being with us.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, all of you, for joining us. Choose one thing that you discovered and implement it in your business. These ideas, tactics, and strategies help you make more money, have more free time, and give back. If you like today's program, spread the word. Please review this podcast on any device you're listening to it on. Help a fellow contractor make more money, too. For comments or questions, call me at 770-729-0258 or email Ruth King at hvacchannel.tv. Thanks for listening. Have a great and profitable day.